Hi, my name is Firas and I'm trying today to show you how to model a parametric table. It's type of a furniture family. You better start up by going to the new and then jump up to family, which I already did this step before. But just to show you how I get here, if you don't know how to start up a new family, and you just pick up the correct type of component family, and in this case I just picked up a metric furniture. Anyway, I'll just press cancel because I already did so. At the beginning you need to have a reference plane like this one, and you better create two, like one to the left of the original point and one to the right. And see, I'm waiting until it's actually starting and ending with the same points that we have on the left side. DI, and that's a shortcut to activate the annotation type linear, which is this one, or you just hit DI as a shortcuts and start up from the left to the middle to the right and then click outside. You see that actually I placed the reference plane not symmetrical to the original line, original reference plane. So just doing so and hitting the EQ here will make them exactly equal to each other. Disregard the actual amount of them, and by this we are making an equal constraint that forced this and that reference plane to have the same distance away from the original reference plane. Creates another one, but this time from the beginning to the end. Place it up, select it, and then add a parameter, and let's call it length. Now, and as a rule of thumb, always when actually creating a parameter here, it's a good idea to flex it, test it. And flex is just the word we use to test if it's actually moving correctly, and that's the name goes for flexing. Let's use 1000 instead of 1200, and we can see that the length is changed to 1000, and then the both reference plane is actually moving to be again equal 500 by 500, even if they didn't show that. Anyway, so it's a good idea to test or flex the reference plane to see if they are working properly, and this will make the table actually always centralized to the center point. I'll do the same thing but for the width this time, and two reference plane, one above and one down. Don't worry about accuracy or if they are equal or no. DI again, and then hit equal, and again to add the external parameter, label it as width. Again, flex it or test it. Let's go for 600 maybe, and we see now it's working perfectly. Now create a normal extrusion, and I'll just use here a rectangle starting from the intersection to the intersection, and then you have to lock those lock pads to make sure that the lines actually will move with the reference planes. Now I would rather work with this thin lines off, and so make it clearer to see instead of this thick line. Anyway, finish the creation, and you get now a 3D box. If you go to the perspective mode, definitely not 100% parametric, but in order to do so, I'll go to the elevation. Let's say back, for example. So the x and the width and length, or x and y of it, is actually parametric, and yet the height is not parametric. So I'll go to create another reference plane, and I'll create one here with a DI again. This would have a label of height Again, flexing that would be a good idea, but first let's link the box to the height. So just hold the mouse or hover above this until it's been telling you that it's changing color. See, now click and drag until you reach the reference plane. Remove your hand and then again lock the shape, the lock pad here, and then test it or flex it, let's say, and we go instead of 783 or whatever to 450, and that's working 100% correctly. So now technically we have a parametric box, and that's so good so far. Now I can create another reference plane like that, DI again, and be careful with these steps because you gotta go from this one, which is the less important one or the new one, to the old reference plane or to the most important reference plane, not vice versa. It can create mess, it depends, but the right way is to go from this new one to the old one or to the original one. And here again, and I'll add a label, and I'll just call it thickness, like that. Now I'll select the lower or the box himself, and from the lower handle here I'm going to push up and then leave my hand with the reference plane and then lock this. And now I have to test whether it's working. First I will change the 450 to 400 to see that if the 91 is still there. It is, that means it's working perfectly. Then I'm going to test the thickness and maybe make it 50, and yes, it's working. So now in the 3D end up by a flying table without the legs yet, and it's fully parametric, and that's good so far. I'll return to the reference plane and model the legs. So I'll go for 4 reference planes. And now DI again, dimension linear, and again from the new one to the old one, the new one to the old one, same concept, new one, old one, new one to the old one, and selecting the 4 of them by pressing the control on your keyboard. I think I pressed the calculator by mistake. Anyway, so add a label, add a new parameter, and let's call it leg thickness, and then I go OK, and see all of them now holding the same value. Let's test and unify that by making it a clear number, let's say 50. So to see whether it's a flex, it is flexing perfectly, as you can see. Now in the create, you gotta do another extrusion and pick up a rectangle, and then 1, 2, and then you have, oops, that's bad. I click accidentally too many stuff. Anyway, so again 1 and 2. Don't leave this creation mode until you lock the pads. 1, 2, 3, 4. Highly recommended to make sure that you clicked 4 lock pads, like again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and be careful when the pads are actually above a previous ones for previous geometry, like here. So be careful, you are selecting the open one to close it, not the other case. Now I made 4 in the same extrude. Now I have to hit tick to finish the editing mode. Going to a back elevation again, and now this handle is outside the geometry, it's okay, and move it to the reference plane. That's not to the geometry, to the reference plane again, and then lock that, test, again to see if your theory is working. Flex it. So I'll go for 400 and make it 450, and I think I make it 4050. That's bad. Anyway, 450, and it's cool. And now I'll flex the thickness, and I'll make it like a really thick, like 100, and see, yet it's working perfectly. Again, put them back 50. Leg thickness maybe 80, like a fatty one here, and I like it. And go like a 50 again. Now everything is working perfectly. You can now go and hit save as, and then family, and you get yourself a normal what do you call it, let's call it the parametric table 1. See, save. Now we get a parametric table. It's a normal solid shape of a table that it actually can work in any type of project environment as any shape you like to change later on. But let's make it another one from it. It's slightly more complicated. Let's go to and save it. This one I will add a glass panel to it. So it's a good opportunity also to explain, and instead of a solid extrusion, how we can make a void extrusion. So go again to create, and again you can do it from here, extrude solid, and then we change the property to void, or just doing it here immediately as a void extrusion. It's just technically the same, just one extra step here by changing the word solid into void. Anyway, go to the rectangle, and now from this point to this point, don't forget, lock those lock pads like that. Don't worry about the 3D, just hit tick. Now jump into the back elevation. See, that's the void. So the higher level with the higher level, lock it. Lower level again with the lower level and lock it. If you go to 3D, don't get surprised. Probably, and now as you see, it's not gonna cut itself. Sometimes it is. I can tell you why anyway. So I can go to cut, select this one, and then select the void one, and it's gonna cut itself. So select the solid and then select the void geometry. Now it's actually been cut. If you don't believe me, I think it's you can see the leg, but anyway, turning this into shaded mode might help you to understand things better. Back again to the reference level. Now another solid, just to make the glass panel. Again, from the intersection to the intersection, lock those dudes together. Back to the back elevation, and now I forgot to hit this stick. Now the higher surface with a higher surface or reference plane, lock it. The lower one, I don't think you make it to this, so it makes no sense. It will be really thick. So I'll go and create a reference plane, probably a small one, like here. And this reference plane, I may give it a dimension, and then the dimension a parameter, and I'll go with the glass thickness. And it's okay. Probably it's a good idea to flex that. So instead of the 14, maybe 20. That's still thick, but yeah, you see that's moving. So 10. Beautiful. Now select the glass and push it toward the reference plane, and then lock it. Now we have a very nice glass panel. It's not yet glass. I select it, and from the material here, just hit this, and then Revit will open up the material dialog for you, so you can select the glass as I did here. That's all. Hit OK. And now the higher surface that we created will actually be as a glass panel. Right here I'm going to save. It's a good idea to save continuously in order to save your work from crashing, and you can go and test the thing that you did the table that just make 500 by 500 and the height 400. Hit apply and we see that it's working nice and smooth. And you can change the leg thickness to 100, sorry, and hit apply. You're gonna see kind of crazy shape here, but it's working yet correctly. So I'll return it to 50 and hit OK, and by that we actually finishing this table. Thank you for watching and have a good day.